Hey guys, this is Derek with Blue Collar Chess, and today's video I want to talk about this book, Chess Exam and Training Guide by Igor Khmelnitsky. So this is it's a puzzle book, but it's kind of more of a test slash puzzle book. So the puzzles are of varying degrees. Some are kind of easy, and you probably have seen the position before or a similar position before. Some are extremely difficult. You're doing a lot more calculation. Some of them are, everywhere from like an opening idea to a classic endgame. So all that stuff is in here. So the idea of the book is you're going to evaluate yourself based on this point system that he's going to give you. So you're going to solve puzzles. He's going to ask you a couple questions. Usually, how do you evaluate this position? He'll give you an A, B, C, D, and you pick from one of those. And then he'll ask you the best move at that point. And so it's structured in such a way that you're not completely on your own. So you are getting kind of hints, but honestly, the puzzles are typically hard enough that the hints aren't even remotely enough. Like, I would say this book is geared for people at my level. You can take it if you're a class C player or a class D player, I'm sure, but I would assume it's going to be very difficult for you. But if you're in the range of intermediate and you're starting to do more calculation type stuff, I would highly recommend this book. So I'm going to do a couple of puzzles from the book so you can kind of get an idea of the way the guy talks and the actual point of the puzzles here. And so, without further ado, let's look at. We're going to look at page 59. It's question number 18. Okay, so it is black to move here. So here he's going to ask you a question. So it's, which is the most accurate statement? A, white is winning. B, it's a draw. C, if white was to move, then white would win. And D, both B and C are correct. Okay, so I think you can see what I mean by, like, he's kind of giving you a hint, because you may have thought something completely different. Not in this position per se, but you'll have positions where you might not see some of the suggestions that he is suggesting. So that makes it pretty good. Anyways, my nose is a little runny here today. Okay. White is, so which is the most accurate statement? So when I went through this, I thought if black just stayed on that diagonal, the H3 to C8 diagonal, I thought black was doing fine. But the maneuver I was missing was bishop to D7, and then wherever black moves, at that point, you're going to play bishop to C8, and then it's there that if you go, because you're going to have to go to the A4 diagonal, and at that point, you've got D7, no, I'm sorry, not D7, but bishop to B7, and that's going to block it, because at that point, you don't have time to get back to the diagonal, and he's going to queen. So I just didn't see that. So my initial answer was that I picked B as a draw, and that's what I thought the answer was. It was just a draw no matter what. So that so it's only a draw if black plays the right move here. Okay. So now, that first question, it gets you to really evaluate and to think about the position. Okay. So now the second question is, once you've answered that one, is what is the best move? A, king E5 to D5. B, king E5 to D4. C, king E5 to F6. Or D, bishop to H3. So, again, when I initially evaluated it, I just thought you would stay somewhere on the diagonal, and then you would So I thought like bishop to f4, so he didn't even like give the move that I thought you would end up doing, okay? So once he gave me those moves, I really kind of started looking. And then I got thinking about all the king moves. Well, so the problem with king to d5 is that it's going to be a position where you end up getting checked by the bishop, right? So, all right. Actually, before I go any further into that, I want to say bishop. So if white was to move here, bishop d7 is a draw. It's a dead draw. Okay. So if you can imagine bishop to or king to d5, and now bishop to d7, and then the bishop goes to d1 or e2 or whatever, then you just have bishop to c6 check, and you have that tempo now where you're going to push the pawn. So what that's going to look like is this. So this should solve the puzzle for you. Oh, whoops, I can't show you because I don't have that set up like that. But say I'll show you with bishop to h3, right? It's one of the moves. So bishop d7, you're going to play bishop here, and then what you're going to do is that you're going to do this. So that way, if he does something, well, okay, so any bishop move besides this square right here, because he has to constantly attack that square, right? So any move besides that move doesn't do anything. So then you just have this, right? And then, so say if he does that, then you just have this, and no matter what happens here, he's got to come off. That's going to be this. And you're going to push. All right. So that's the actual issue. All right. So if it was white to move, it's the same principle. So now, what is the best move? So you know moving the bishop doesn't work. You know king e5 to d5 doesn't work because he comes back with that check and it gives you the tempo to push the pawn. Now king e5 to f6 I didn't even look at before. I've got to believe this is the exact same problem. So you go here, and then if he goes here, yeah, it's the exact same issue, right? So then he would just do that, and then you would do this, and again, he just doesn't have anything. Go there, you threaten there, he's got to take. If he goes there, you just do this, and you're going to win. So, so you know king f6 kind of allows the same bishop to d7 thing. So the only one we haven't looked at is king to d4. And I haven't actually looked at this yet. Because like I said, I know that I got it wrong, but I know the correct answer is king to d4. And so we go to king d4. Now here, so this would be the move that we have to look at, right? Now you can play, I think bishop d1 would be the move. And then if he goes to b6 now, you can play bishop to a4. And now if he does this, right, which was the problem before, you've got king to c5. Okay. So that's the issue. So let's look at the answers on the back, so you get the idea of what he says. So to the first question, this is one of the few standard endgame positions worth memorizing. Since his king can't possibly reach the optimal defensive position in front of the pawn, black must rely on his king to continue controlling d7. White's winning plan is to drive the bishop away by threatening a bishop exchange. The execution is not very complex unless black's king can sneak in from behind. Black can draw, but only if he goes first. So, oh yeah, so both B and C are correct, but when picked separately, each earns you only 1 point. You get 5 points for selecting D. So he gives you a point system, okay, and that comes into play later on once you're done with the 10 questions. So each chapter has 10 questions, and then you get an evaluation and kind of book recommendations and basically saying where you're kind of weak, where you're kind of, that type of stuff. So So then we'll just solve the we'll go through the actual puzzle here, and we'll go back here. Since black is defending, he must start the move selection process by identifying his opponent's threats. White does have a threat, and that is why C is correct. After bishop d7, white can drive black away from controlling d7, and the pawn will be able to sneak through. For example, bishop d1. Oh no! So sorry. That's if white was to move, and we've already looked at that. So we'll just go to the next section of this paragraph. This leaves black with two moves to choose from: bishop d5 or king d5 or king d4. Note the problem with king d5 due to bishop d7, bishop d1, bishop c6 check, and bishop d7. Last but not the least choice, king d4, 5 points. So, sorry, that was a little disjointed because I'm reading it as opposed to you looking at it. And I've already solved the puzzle for you. But I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what this is offering, So we're going to do one more, page 149, because that was an endgame. So you should remember the endgame, though. Put it in, train against the computer. Oh, yeah, right. So this is the position. It's white to move. And what page is it? Page 149. And so the question he asks here is evaluate the position. So you have to calculate to evaluate the position. When I looked at this, I thought it was pretty dire for white. I believe white has a win here after I looked at it, but when I first looked at it, I thought it was pretty dire, and I thought queen d4 was a winning move, and it turned out that it was not a winning move, but that's what my answer was. I was like, okay, he's going to play queen d4, and they have that move in the book, so I just assumed I was right? So I also looked at rook takes rook takes h5. Yeah, rook takes h5, king takes, and then king to, is that right? Rook takes h5, king takes rook, queen to h7, king to, why is that not winning? What is going on? It might be queen takes f2 check is what happens there. Or even rook takes f2 check. No. Well, no, that's not a check. So yeah, so white isn't. So let's take a look at. So let's take a look at this. Why does this not win? Ah, right. Okay, so do you see why this doesn't win? I missed this when I was doing my initial evaluation too. So the biggest threat that black has is queen takes bishop check, and then rook to c1 checkmate. So if you do anything that's not kind of forcing, it looks like, or solving that as a problem, then yeah, okay. I had forgotten that. So, again, so when I evaluate the position, the question is black is winning, B is nearly equal, C, white is winning, D, white has a mate in 1. Okay. So when I looked at it, black is winning. I thought it was at least a draw. The draw is not that easy though, and nearly equal. I kind of thought that was a thing. White is winning, so I chose white is winning. I cannot see a mate in 1 for white. So now the second part of the question is, what is the best move? Rook to e7, which I never even looked at or anything. Rook h7 takes h5. which I decided wasn't the best move, but it was more of a feel thing, and I should have known that. I think Queen A7 to D4 check, which was the move that I picked, and then Queen A7 to E3. I feel like that's got to be bad, right? Because you would just take the queen, take back with a pawn. The king would take the other pawn, and I mean, you may not be. I don't know. I would say that's got to be much better for black. Yeah, I think Queen E3 is terrible. So anyways, the move turns out to be Rook H7 to E7. But let's look at what he says here. He also gives the percentages of how many people got the position right, by the way. Or the answers right. I should have mentioned that. I'll show this page to you if you can see that. So this extremely wild position could have happened in the game. Both kings are struggling to survive. There is no checkmate in 1 for either side, so -1 point for D. But black is threatening checkmate in 2 after queen takes F1 and rook C1. However, it is white who is starting this decisive attack first. 5 points for C. White is winning. Okay. So the next point, the next part of the question is, precision and calculation is invaluable in such a dynamic position. If you recognize the threat of queen takes F1 check, then you should have eliminated the otherwise promising rook takes H5. Yes. Furthermore, white is not winning after queen D4 check, for example, bishop E4. So I thought even after this, you were winning. So I did a lot of calculations here. So let's take a look at this position right here. Queen E4 check, bishop here. And then pawn takes E4. And then rook to D2. This is what I missed. So I have a video about calculating. You need to really slow down and do proper calculation. And you need proper board visualization to do this. So the problem with here, I guess, queen B6 here is the move that he recommends. And then king to F3. Queen to B3 check. And then king to G4. And queen to B6. Always keeping an eye on here. And basically, I think the idea is that white's going to have to settle for a draw here. Queen E3 is he says, an obvious blunder. So we'll take a look at that. So queen E3 is an obvious blunder. Just queen takes E3, F takes E3, then king takes G3. And yeah, this is going to be tough. I mean, obviously you're a piece. You're an entire piece down, aren't you? So, but white is indeed triumphant after the rook E7. So let's take a look at rook E7. And you get 5 points for that. Following this move, white maintains the pressure on black's king while preventing black's threats after queen D1. So rook E7, so queen D1. Yeah, so the idea is, what he's saying is, so if he takes here, you take, he checks you, you just come back like this. Probably worst case scenario would be... Yeah, there is no worst case scenario. This is just completely winning for white. So, all right. So, queen to D1 apparently is the move. And then he gives another variation of queen takes F2 check. But I don't. That one looks pretty easy to me. So queen D4 check. It says here now. Bishop to E4. And then rook takes E4 check. Okay, so I missed this, and okay, like just a second ago. So you're gonna take with the pawn, right? The queen is gonna take e4. Then what's the king do? No, the knight's got to do this. Then you're gonna do this, and then there, and then checkmate. All right, fair enough. So then he gives like a little, well, just a little note here. Learn to recognize your opponent's threats, and you will find cool defensive moves like rook e7. Yeah, so rook e7 is a great move. So anyway, so this is the type of stuff you're gonna get from this book. It's a fantastic book. My only gripe is that even when you're just reading, they give a figurine notation. I would prefer, I don't know, I just don't really like figurine notation. I like, you know, K for a king, that N for a knight, that type of stuff. I just prefer that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with figurine notation. But yeah, so it's a fantastic book if you want to do some training. It's a great puzzle book, even though it's not really 100% like a puzzle book, but it really is. And again, he's going to give you recommendations at the end. He's going to give you some book recommendations. He also, I should tell you, so he tells you how to work through the book, and he wants you doing it over an actual board with pieces in that 3D space, you know, which if you're going to play over the board, I think it is better, but if you play mostly online, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it on, like, excuse me, the Lichess evaluation board or whatever. So anyways, this is Derek, Blue Collar Chess. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to be bringing some more book recommendations out there. All right, guys. Talk to you guys later.